Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here on MMA Junkie, we take you on a quick spin through the week's news. And what can I say this week, guys? We have got the best three pugilistic prognosticators Sin City has to offer. MMA Junkie's John Morgan is in the house, and MMA Junkie Radio's Gorgeous George and Goze are here as always. Lots to unpack this week, so let's get straight on with it. And right from the very first bout on Saturday night at the UFC Apex, UFC on ESPN 15 served up a whole heap of crazy moments on a fun night in Las Vegas. But of course, everyone is talking about that main event, which dominated the headlines as former UFC lightweight champion Frankie "The Answer" Edgar claimed a split decision win over Pedro Munoz on his bantamweight debut. To kick things off this week, I want to get your take on where you think Edgar should slot in those 135-pound rankings. Does his resume mean he's already ready for a title shot? Or will he have to work his way up through a few more contenders first? It is a packed field at 135 pounds. Let's get your take. We'll put 3 minutes on the clock to get things started. John, you can lead us off.
First of all, let me just point out, I think you laughed a little bit when you said, is he ready for a title shot? So I think we know which way you're leaning there. But no, listen, you can't ignore the man's career resume. I mean, he's a future UFC Hall of Famer. And look, I love him at 135. To be honest, I wasn't sure if he would be too sucked out or not look like he belonged. I thought he looked in great shape. So I think he really does have a future at 135. That said, I will be honest, I did score the fight for Pedro Munoz. I had Frankie Edgar taking rounds 2 and 5, but coming up just short. But it was a close fight, and he looked good. I don't think it's enough for a title shot. I mean, first of all, let's make clear we're not talking about skipping Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling. You got to have Aljamain Sterling in there next, and hopefully that gets announced soon. But then, Marlon Moraes and Corey Sandhagen have a fight coming up too. I mean, those guys are still there too. They've been putting in the work ahead of time. For me right now, give me the Edgar Munoz rematch that Pedro's calling for. I don't have a problem with that at all. We could do that, or maybe even TJ Dillashaw in January when he can come back and fight again. It's a little time away, but something. But I think you got to have at least one more fight in there.
Yeah, it's a packed division. You got contenders sort of running down that order. It's pretty deep. George, where would you put him in, and who do you want him in with next?
Well, I think these fighters, when they move from weight classes, especially the ones that have attained like the status of what Frankie Edgar has, a world title, contendership in another division, you got to bring over some of that equity, to your new resume, I guess. The bantamweight division is stacked. And he doesn't just get to walk into a title shot for sure. Beating Munoz was a nice step, and that'll be reflected when y'all see the rankings report this week. But he still needs another fight. There's still some killers out there. And like I said, we've got to be clear. It's Yan and Sterling all day. There's nothing that should impede that. But for sure, Frankie will have to take another one. And guess what? I don't think it'll be Moraes, because those two guys were tight at one point. They're not teammates per se right now, but I'm sure they're still friends. So he'll probably have to take, another fight and impress, because again, it's a stacked division. You have to impress, you have to finish.
How do you see this goes? It's as I say, stacked division. Does he slot in just under those top contenders, or do you think the rematch is a good idea?
I thought he looked pretty damn good at bantamweight. He definitely needs to finish his career there. But when it comes to his future, the one thing that we have to be realistic for here, guys, is this is another fight. This is more accumulated damage. He's not getting any younger. So we have to really pick and choose who we put him up against. Now, I think we can all agree that this is probably where he should have been from day one. He was successful in other weight classes, but this looks like this would have given us the best Frankie Edgar. And it took the best Frankie Edgar to defeat Pedro Munoz. So what I would say is, at this point, why don't we give him a fight that we were all almost cheated from this whole time? And that was, if it was Frankie Edgar at 135 in his prime, wouldn't you have liked to see him fight Dominic Cruz in his prime? Granted, they're probably both not in their primes now, but why not make that one happen? I'm down for that.
No, I'm down for that. That sounds like an absolutely brilliant piece of matchmaking goes. We should we need to lobby for this. That sounds like a cracker. One of the big talking points, guys, from the weekend came with the fact that Bellator are back on the scene as well. And it's the first time we've had a bit of interaction between Scott Coker and Dana White. The respective presidents of Bellator and UFC both weighed in on the topic of the light heavyweight division. John Jones, of course, is departing the UFC's 205-pound weight class, moving up to heavyweight. And as a result, Coker thinks that Bellator now has the best light heavyweight division in MMA. Dana White's response during his post-fight press conference on Saturday night suggested otherwise. Does Coker have a point? And does Bellator have that best division now? Or is the UFC still the home of the world's premier 205-pound fighters? Guys, let me know what you think. We'll put 3 more minutes on the clock. And George, you can lead us off.
You know, it was interesting to watch Dana White react to it initially because
isn't he cute?
From what I can tell over the years, there's always been mutual respect between Coker and White. They don't really go at each other. So he had to think about it. But snuck in the middle in between, obviously him, thinking that that's not the case. He did say, look, Scott's got to do what he's got to do. You can't blame him. So he understands that. But if you take a look at the rankings, again, we're sorting through them. You'll see a new rankings report soon. Scott Coker does have 4 top 10 guys now that he's got Corey Anderson. He's also got Nemkov, the champ, and Phil Davis and Ryan Bader. So Davis and Bader, look, when they were in the UFC, they were successful light heavyweights. Their contracts ran out or it wasn't – I don't think it was like a cut per se. I think it was more of a money issue. So he can't match up with UFC because UFC's got the depth, but he at least has 4 nice killers there over there at Bellator.
Yeah, it is a conversation piece now. Maybe 6 to 12 months ago, this wouldn't have been a discussion. But now Jones has moved out of that division. Goes, what do you reckon? Is it a bit more evenly balanced now?
Well, I think there's arguments to be made. Bellator's division is nice. And really, when you throw in some of the guys in the lower divisions that have a little bit of a light heavyweight resume, like Gegard Mousasi, Lyoto Machida, it strengthens it a little bit. But I feel like when you're going to have an argument like this, you have to go through it like with a fine comb. And when you do that, you're going to realize that the UFC has a mixture of veterans and up-and-coming stars. So with John Jones vacating, it creates a lot of fresh matchups. And I don't know that there's a lot of fresh matchups over there at Bellator. So adding a guy like Anthony Johnson, John Jones being gone, there's just so many different things that you can do now. I don't think you can scoff at what Scott Coker said, but I think when you go through it, you're going to see the UFC's divisions just a little bit more stacked.
Yeah, the UFC have got the economies of scale, John. They've got the bigger roster. But Vadim Nemkov looked pretty damn good on Friday night. Where do you think he slots in that overall 205-pound division? And how strong are Bellator at 205 right now?
Yeah, listen, it's not a crazy claim to make, and kudos to Scott Coker for making it. It's a discussion that's worth having, where at some points in time it would have been silly. It's worth having this discussion. If you look at our rankings this week, 4 of the top 7, not just top 10 fighters, 4 of the top 7 belong to Bellator. And Nemkov is right there among them, man. He's right there at the top of the division. But that said, I think George touched on earlier, the depth, man. You got the depth. There's just all the other names that are in the UFC roster. So to me, that makes it a better roster overall. Maybe it's a little more top heavy at Bellator right now, but remember, just because John Jones stepped out, man, that doesn't make it. Those are guys that didn't have to lose to John Jones, basically. So you're taking away the best fighter in the world, but Dominic Reyes arguably beat him, right? So he's still right there. So it's an argument to make, but I'm sticking with UFC.
Yeah, I think they probably just about still have the edge. And if there was anything that was going to tip the balance, a certain Anthony Rumble Johnson looks like he's ready to put the 4-ounce gloves back on and get back into the UFC octagon once again. He's gone public on his desire to get back in there, saying he misses the sport, he misses the competition. And with Jones moving up to heavyweight, the return of Rumble could really add some more spice into that mix in the UFC's 205-pound division. But he hasn't fought since April 2017. So put your matchmakers hats on, guys. How would you book Rumble's return? It's time to play matchmaker, so let us know which fight you want to see him come back to in the UFC. 2 minutes on the clock, so keep it short and sweet, guys. Goze, lead us off.
I think you go all in with a guy like Rumble Johnson. He's a guy that you really don't have to promote that much. When you look the way he does, when you fight the way he does, there's not much you have to do. And I think you have to go back at what he did before he left the UFC, and he accomplished quite a bit. He only lost to some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. So I think you put him in a contenders fight. We're still a ways away, but I'm thinking guys like Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith, I think those would be good guys. But really the thing that I can't get out of my head is I think eventually you want John Jones to come back and fight him, because wouldn't that be one name that John Jones has never seen and a fight that we've always wanted? So I would start with maybe a guy like Anthony Smith or Thiago Santos.
John, I'm still stunned that the man ever fought at 170 pounds. I remember watching him back in those days. Insane. Coming back at 205, where do you think he should slot in?
Yeah, listen, it's a contender type fight, but also stylistically, right? We know what we want from Anthony Johnson. We want to see the man rumble. So I like Maheta. That makes sense. How about some other names I'll throw out there? Yuri Prochaska. I know it's kind of early in his career, but that might be a fun one. Volkan Oezdemir. come on, man. I think that could be a fun one as well. And the other one that kind of sticks out to me, it's a little bit random, not as high up the rankings. But what about Johnny Walker in there with them? I mean, all these, I'm thinking stylistic matchups. We want to see Rumble stand and bang, man. So I think all those could be fun. You got to put him in a matchup where he's going to allow him to throw down.
Yeah, I like the Jiri Prochaska matchup. That sounds like a good one. George, what do you reckon?
Yeah, Jiri's a great name. I agree with that one. And then what I would like to see is for one of those guys, like the fellas mentioned, the winner of Smith and Rakic, the winner of Teixeira and Thiago Santos, maybe not necessarily Glover because he's more, reserved, but just one of those win their upcoming bouts and then say, hey, Rumble, I'd like to welcome you back. That's what the UFC wants to see. And that's the perfect guy to make you qualify for a world title fight in the future.
Yeah, whenever and whoever he fights when he comes back, it's going to be must-see TV. Do not blink when Rumble Johnson gets back in the cage. He's even hinted that maybe once he's done with the UFC, guys, he might even have a fight for bare knuckle fighting championships. How terrifying is that? And that is exactly where we're going to see Paige VanZant have her next fight after a shock decision to sign for BKFC rather than accept an offer from one of the other major MMA promotions. We know Bellator did make an offer, but she opted for BKFC. So, guys, what are your expectations for Paige as she steps into the brave new world of bare-knuckle combat? How many fights do you think she's going to have? And how much of a success do you think she'll be inside the ring? We'll put 2 more minutes on the clock. John, what do you reckon?
Listen, man, I was as surprised as anybody that she made this move. I thought Bellator was a clear home run for her services, but she seems happy with it, and they're saying it's a multi-million-dollar deal. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of that, how they're going to make money on this right now. They just distribute through an app. That's a lot of subscriptions that you got to sell in order to get that money back. But listen, they're making a play, right? They're making a big push. I mean, you got Thiago Alves over there, Hector Lombard over there. I mean, you got these recognizable names that they're trying to compete with. So, they're trying to dip into the MMA fan base. And look, it's getting my attention. I know I'll certainly be watching. So listen, I think she'll fight out the contract. I mean, we praise her durability in the past. She's going to have another chance to show it. How many fights? I don't know, 2 a year or so. We'll see. But it's a big move for BKFC for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a great PR move for them. George, how do you think she's going to go in competition terms?
Look, I do want to say, man, let's not just kid ourselves. I just don't think that's the spot for her. But BKFC, I mean, are some day. So I get it. I'm not hating on her, but I just never saw those skills when she was in the Ultimate Fighting Championship that led me to believe, I think she would do well, in any of the stand-up type of organizations. So hopefully she just dedicates herself to get better, because I'd love to see her back in MMA, but I'm not hating on her for going in there and getting some depth.
Yeah, guys, what do you reckon on this? Is this a short-term stay and maybe join Bellator afterwards? Is this an opportunity to take a huge contract, do you think?
Yeah, I think this is just a stop, on her journey. I imagine it would be foolish to throw her into the fire, I think, especially somebody who doesn't have experience in this. We noticed no matter how hard you prepare, it's bare knuckle, man. Bad things are going to happen. If I had to guess, I would imagine bare knuckle maybe gives her a couple winnable fights, but then sets her up with somebody maybe from the boxing world. We know they had a lot of success with Lobov and Malignaggi, right? So maybe they try something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see how that all pans out. One thing's for sure, a lot of people, I dare say, including the 4 of us, are going to be watching. And finally, on Spinning Back Clique this week, Dana White revealed during Saturday night's press conference that former interim lightweight champions Tony Ferguson and Dustin Poirier are, quotes, probably going to fight next. Now, given the brutal nature of Ferguson's recent loss to Justin Gaethje, I want to get your take on this, because competition-wise, seems to make total sense jumping straight back in there at the level that he was fighting at before. But is this what he needs after such a rough defeat against Gaethje last time out? Does he need to take a bit more of a softly approach, or is he doing the right thing by jumping straight back in there? Guys, we'll put 2 minutes on the clock to finish off. George, what do you reckon?
It's a perfect name, because just like himself, Gaethje's a former interim champion. They both wore gold, and he doesn't just get to fight the winner of Gaethje and Khabib. And it's unfortunate, because he had an incredible run before losing to Gaethje. But this is the perfect fight, not only for Ferguson, it's the perfect fight for Poirier. I know they both want to crack at that undisputed again.
Sure thing. Goze, what do you reckon? Is this the right fight for him?
It's so tough to say. I mean, I can sit here and tell you Tony should take more time, Tony should get somebody else, but the reality is in the lightweight division, there is nothing but killers. It doesn't really matter who you get. It's going to be a tough outing. Are you telling me he's going to be safer against a Paul Felder or Dan Hooker's going to take his foot off the gas? There are nothing but killers in this division. So it's a division full of Ferraris and tanks. And you know what? Instead of maybe focusing on who they're giving Tony Ferguson, I'm maybe thinking I feel bad for, the guy that's in front of Tony Ferguson. That is a guy on a mission right now. It's now or never for him. Dustin Poirier's tough, but he's going to have a tough outing with Tony Ferguson.
It's a tough one. I remember thinking straight after that fight, John, that he needed to take the rest of 2020 off, but it looks as if he's back in there before the end of the year. What do you reckon?
Tony Ferguson taking time off. Come on, man. He's had enough starts and stops throughout his career. He's got to keep going. I agree. There are no easy fights in lightweight division. So what are you really waiting for? I mean, I like it. He's had so many missed opportunities along the way and setbacks and things that kind of derailed his career. Yes, the loss was brutal, certainly, but he's taken some time to get over it already. It's not like he jumped right back into something. And I think if you're going to do it, jump right back in at the top end, man. There's not going to be any easy fights, as Goze touched on. And Tony Ferguson, man, he's still right there at the top. And I'd love to see him get what he's worked so hard to go. So why not do it against a big name? Roll the dice, strike while the iron's hot. Whatever cliche you need there, you got to stay right there at the top of the division. This is a hell of a way to do it.
Yeah, and you never know. We might actually one day, if we're really lucky, get to see Tony Ferguson against that Russian dude, Khabib Nurmagomedov. It might just happen. You never know. Stranger things have happened in mixed martial arts, ladies and gentlemen. But that is all we've got time for on Spinning Back Clique this week. Huge thank you to John Morgan, to Gorgeous George, and to Goze. Keep it locked to MMA Junkie for the rest of the week as we build up to UFC on ESPN Plus 33. Smith versus Rakic in the main event. Lawler versus Magny in the co-main event. Two big, important fights for their respective weight classes. We will be all over it. So please do check out the coverage this week. And we'll be back next week to unpick it all on Spinning Back Clique.